As sports fans, we tend to associate players with certain teams. For example, Tom Brady will always be remembered as a Patriot, Peyton Manning as a Colt, Julio Jones as a Falcon, and so forth. But today we're going to go over some veteran NFL players that you may have forgot played for certain teams during their NFL careers. And to keep things fair, I'm going to use 5 games minimum with that team as a threshold. So no, Antonio Brown's 1 game as a Patriot in 2019 will not count. If you are part of the younger generation, you probably know this guy more as a TV analyst on NFL Network, but running back Maurice Jones-Drew is way more than a talking head. MJD spent 8 seasons in Jacksonville from 2006 to 2013, putting up over 8,000 rushing yards, 4.5 yards per carry, and a franchise record 68 rushing touchdowns. In 2011, he led the league in rushing and in yards per game, but a year later in 2012, he missed over half the season with a foot injury. He spent his last year as a Jaguar in 2013, but had by far the worst season of his career, averaging a dreadful 3.4 yards per carry and barely surpassed 800 rushing yards despite having 234 carries. During that 2014 offseason, MJD stated that he wanted a 3-year deal but never got that from the Jags. Now here comes the premise of the video and where you may have forgot Maurice Jones-Drew finished his career. He ended up signing a 3-year deal with the Oakland Raiders but only lasted there for 1 season. MJD unfortunately clearly looked washed up, averaging a career worst 2.2 yards per carry on only 43 rushing attempts. Darren McFadden led the team in carries that season, and rookie Latavius Murray ended up taking MJD's role by the second half of the season. Jones-Drew announced his retirement during that 2015 offseason, but it would have been very unlikely to see him playing for another team regardless. Percy Harvin will always be remembered more for his time at Florida, the Vikings, and his Super Bowl kickoff return, but you may have forgot that he spent 8 games with the Jets. During Week 7 of the 2014 season, the Jets traded a conditional 6th-round pick to Seattle in exchange for electric wide receiver Percy Harvin. The Jets were 1-6 at the time, so it wasn't like this was a move to win now, but maybe it was an attempt for Rex Ryan to save his job. That did not work because Ryan was fired just a few months later after finishing 4-12. But as for Harvin, he spent 8 games in a Jets uniform and averaged 3.5 catches for 44 yards per game during that stretch. He had a couple of monster games, including an 11-catch, 129-yard game at Kansas City and a 6-catch, 124-yard game and a touchdown versus the team that drafted him, the Minnesota Vikings. Harvin's career fizzled out after this, and he actually spent the last couple of years of his career in Buffalo for Rex Ryan. We all know what Harvin could have been if he were able to avoid the injuries and migraines, but the guy was a game changer when healthy. And to be honest, it was weird to see him wear number 16 for the Jets. Next, we have a future Hall of Fame cornerback that I once actually did an entire video on, and that is Darrelle Revis. Revis will always be remembered for his 2 stints with the Jets and that 1 Super Bowl winning season with the Patriots. And for pretty much half a decade, Revis was universally known as the best cornerback on the planet during that time from 2008 to 2011. I could throw his last season in there when he was a member of the Kansas City Chiefs for 5 games in 2017, but I'm going to go with a year where Revis was still in his prime. With the 2012 Jets coming off a 6-10 season and Darrelle Revis coming off an ACL tear, he was shipped to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the 13th overall pick in that upcoming draft. It was just really awkward to see Darrelle Revis in a Buccaneers jersey. He lasted there for 1 season and the Bucs started off 0-8 and fell way short of the success they hoped to reach that season. Revis had signed a 6-year contract that made him the highest paid defensive back in NFL history at the time, but there was surprisingly no guaranteed money. Due to that and not being able to find a trade partner, the Buccaneers released Revis after 1 season despite playing in all 16 games and being a Pro Bowler that year. Revis would go on to sign a 1-year deal with the Patriots and got himself a Super Bowl ring with help from fellow cornerback Malcolm Butler at the 1-yard line. Jamaal Charles had a fabulous career as a Kansas City Chief. He is still the all-time yards per carry leader amongst running backs in the Super Bowl era with a ridiculous 5.4 yards per carry for his career. He made a couple of All-Pro teams, many Pro Bowl teams, and he was a damn good receiver too. He will always be remembered as a Chief, but a late career stop to a division rival for the 2017 season is one that may have escaped our minds. Charles's contract ran out with Kansas City, but now he was 31 years old and coming off knee surgery on both knees. At this point in his career, Charles was 3 years removed from his last 1,000-yard season and only played 8 games in the last 2 seasons combined, but he still felt he could play. Turns out he never really got the opportunity. Charles played in 14 games that year, which was good, but he was 3rd on the depth chart behind CJ Anderson and Devontae Booker. He still averaged 4.3 yards per carry, but Charles just was not what he used to be. He actually lasted another season and played 2 games for the Jaguars in 2018, but after that we never saw Charles play again. Edge rusher Terrell Suggs spent 16 years as a member of the Baltimore Ravens. Suggs admitted that the Ravens made him a quote-unquote handsome offer to return, but he felt it was time to move on and join another organization. Suggs took took his talents to the Arizona Cardinals at the age of 37. He went to Arizona State in college and went to high school in Arizona, so this was looked at as a homecoming for him. He actually had decent success with 5.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles in 13 games, but after Arizona was out of playoff contention, he was released and picked up by the Kansas City Chiefs late in the season. He actually won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs in the 2019 season, only playing in 2 regular season games plus the playoffs, but that was the last time we saw Terrell Suggs play in the NFL, but at least he went out on top. Last on our list, we're gonna go with another Baltimore Ravens legend, but this time it's Ed Reed. Reed spent his first 11 seasons of his Hall of Fame career in Baltimore, but they did not want him back after the 2013 season. While he was 35 at the time, he still had the desire to play and took his talents to Houston on a 3-year deal with the Texans. After off-season surgery, he did not debut until week 3 at the Ravens, ironically, but as the season went on, he lost playing time and eventually was released midway through the season by the Texans. Ed Reed then joined the New York Jets, reuniting him with Rex Ryan, who was once his defensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens. The Jets were 5-5 when Reed joined, but they finished at 8-8 and failed to make the playoffs. He did have 3 interceptions in his last 7 games and 2 in his last 2 games with the Jets, but that would be the last time we saw Ed Reed play in the NFL. Reed announced his retirement in 2015 and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2019. That'll do it for this video of players you may have forgotten played for certain teams. If you like this idea, then let me know in the comments and maybe a part 2 will be released. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time.